We are having a guest as usual, but a very resourceful person in that line of celebrating mothers. She's an icon in as far as celebrating and respecting women in Uganda is concerned. You'll believe me when you get to see her on the screen. She's really an icon in as far as celebrating women is concerned. And her name is Dr. Specioza Naiti Naigaga Wandira Kazibwe. She is the first woman vice president in Africa. I read that. So if we are to look at an icon of a woman in Africa, in Uganda, she is here in our home in Kampala, in Iganga, in Uganda. We are so glad to have you.
Thank you very much, Michael.
How are you?
I'm good, by the grace of God.
I've not told people that we are meeting you at the Ministry of Health. What do you do here? Everybody would expect you to be home, retired.
I have been sitting here since 2011 as the Senior Presidential Advisor, Population and Health Matters. This is in the planning department of the Ministry of Health. This is where plans for the health sector, budgeting for the health sector is done, and the coordination of all stakeholders that support the health services delivery. So what do I do here? I mentor planners.
So we are still getting a lot from you as a country.
By the grace of God, I'm not young. Yes, mentally I'm still very astute, and health-wise, God has been good to me physically. I don't have a major problem that would stop me from serving the people of Uganda and Africa.
How do you celebrate Women's Day? How did you celebrate this particular one of this week?
I was sitting at home, watching TV, but because I couldn't go to that place, it was a bit far, and you have to use modern technology to the best effect, because I didn't have a role to play there. What I was going to do there was to sit and listen to the people who were on speeches. I did that very well. I was able to even see more people than those who were in Kiruhura. Yes. So to me, technology does a lot for me, and I use it quite a lot in my work. So I know exactly what happened in Kiruhura. I was sitting in my living room, taking note of what everybody was saying, and also what the president said. So to advise people, you have to get the whole angle of what's going on. So I was in Kiruhura via technology, via UBC. And thanks to UBC for that service.
That is our mandate. But do you still have activities that involve women like you used to do? In the first program I did with you, you told me of a number of activities that you used to do with women, and do you still have such things around?
You see, when you are at the policy and planning level, your job is to evaluate all the time. You are doing research all the time and looking at what other researchers are doing. So in this particular ministry, the specific activity that this ministry is charged with is to make sure all people are healthy, to participate productively in the transformation of the country. So, with respect to women, what is that specific thing about women which I have to look at? The role that they have that is different from men as far as being well is the reproductive role. But also culturally, they are the first teachers, they are the doctors in the home, and they are the ones who ensure nutrition in the home. So nutrition is key in ensuring people are productive. So those are the areas we deal with in this ministry, with respect to women and what they can do in truly playing their role.
So you still touch the woman, but at an advanced level now?
It is very basic, because reproduction is a very basic activity. No, you don't have to go to school to reproduce.
How would you describe the state of the woman currently in Uganda?
The woman, you know, when I first joined government, this government in 1986, because before that in the 90s I was very political. Even earlier at university I was very political. Because then, even to want to rear your head as a leader, you just had to stand out if you wanted to lead where the men were. Because there were no women, not many, that people would refer to who in their own individual right had stood up as having leadership skills among the women. Some of them, either they came from rich families, or their husbands had been there. So they rode on that. They rode on that. So what happened when the NRM came? Because of the role the women played in the bush, we also rode on their achievements as strugglers, as hustlers in the struggle, the contribution they made, and the men who were with them, so that they needed women to hustle. That word has come in because some of us are still hustling, actually. Yes, actually, I understand.
After being with them in the struggle in the bush,
yes,
there is no way you would send them back home.
Precisely. Okay. And so when they came in, even as they were planning in the bush, they came with the RC system and said there must be a position for women because people don't elect them in their own right. So when I compare that time with now, and also my own struggle when I was at the national level on the executive of the Democratic Party, and I couldn't get a constituency, and I heard it with my own ears. Where is she married? Where is she born? Well, let her go where she's married. I was married in Mpigi. I'm living and working in Kampala. I am born in Iganga. Now, but the men, nobody asked.
They could go anywhere.
They could go anywhere.
For you, the woman, you had to have answer.
You had to have an answer. So the NRM came and said, you have your position here, irrespective of where you are born, where you are married, get into the RC where you live. So they gave us a platform. And that's how we came up. At that time, in 1987, when I joined the local council 1 as a secretary for women in Bugolobi Flats village, there was no other place where a woman was holding any other role in the whole country. The next time we elected, in 1989, in my village, now I had moved to Bangalows. Bangalows. There, we managed to get 5 women and 4 men. Because between 87 and 89, NRM had around people who were educated. Now they were in a position to say, we need the women. So in my village, we had 5 women on the RC1 and 4 men on the RC1.
What motivated the 5? Because
the women now came up and stood. Within 2 years, the NRM Secretary Desk for Women, led by Honorable Janet Mukwaya, deputized by Solome Mukisa, were able to mobilize us in 2 years through workshops. And some of us also attending the Mchaka, the general, through those trainings, we were able to get women who also stood on other positions.
In different parts of the country.
In different parts of the country.
So that's how we see now the breed of a woman on the screens of leadership in Uganda.
So it just doesn't come by mistake. Okay. It has to be deliberate. So for us, we also had our fighters, not only Mkwaya who was in the bush, but Zizinga, Gertrude Njuba. There was no money at the time, I'm telling you. But they would come to these workshops, and we see them standing. I remember the late, Zizinga, she would salute, stand at attention, and her bottom would shake because she was a very endowed African woman. Yes. And we said, we can do that in her Gomesi. So, all this one, what people see now is not by accident. So those of us who were trained and mentored by women who came from the bush continued mentoring other women. So the mentorship, I believe, continues. I hope it does continue.
How easy was it for, now you who took on from the Janak Mukwayas that came from the bush, I would say they opened your eyes, you now started growing the seeds. How easy was it now to attract other younger ladies of then to get to know the value of them being involved in the leadership of their communities and the country?
If there had not been a secretary for women, where only women competed, we wouldn't have had the core to start with. Yes. Because now each of those women had the responsibility after the training in the villages to look out for girl leaders, to the extent that when I eventually joined government, because then I was in the RC, because by the time I joined the NRC or Parliament, I had come from the LC1, and now I was a councillor. I was a secretary for mobilization, Nakawa division. Okay. We had a vice, we had 3 women entering the city council. Matembe as the vice chairperson of Nakawa division. Myself as mobilizer Nakawa division. And our sister, the name has gone, as the secretary for women. And we were in Kampala, so we stormed the city council. And by the time I actually got into being persuaded to become an NRC member by the people of Nakawa division and Kyambogo, because Nakawa had the university, Kyambogo and Nakawa general, they said you must go with the Kutesa. We already knew the kind of woman we needed. So by the time I became minister, cabinet minister for women in development, youth and culture, I knew we needed more mentoring through the women and youth councils. That's how we come up with the women councils, which were put in place, and the youth councils when I was minister for women and youth.
Now that's spread all over the country.
Yes, you need the structures. If you don't put in place these structures and depend on NGO advocacy, NGO advocacy is useful. Yes. Because there was no money then. So the NGOs helped us to do advocacy, to support the training, to do the research at the time. Because then we didn't even have anything to do with women development or gender at Makerere University. I caused that department to be put in place when I became vice president of Uganda. There was nothing like that. You have to institutionalize what you are doing. If you don't institutionalize it, you don't have a law to support you directly. Because with the law, you'll have resources budgeted for that institution. You'll have resources budgeted for the activities of the people who benefit from that institution.
My focus today is the role of women when involved in leadership. Yesterday, when the whole of the country, the world was celebrating Women's Day, in a number of countries, women were demonstrating mistreatment, denial of being involved in leadership in their countries. Very developed countries, by the way. Yes. Including Pakistan and so many of them. Yes. Yes. Women were demonstrating, protesting, denial of being involved in the leadership activities of their countries and communities, and mistreatment in their homes, laws that gag them, what here we call kubako umire manju, things like that. What is the role of women being involved in leadership? We see these are countries that are very developed with a lot of good things that we actually admire. And those of us who have you people shining in big positions and giving a lot to this country, we are still a step back. So what is the role of having women in the activities of leadership in a country?
You know, one thing is, when we go to the national level, yes, everybody thought we were there to be seen, to be beautiful, to do our hair, to do our eyelashes, to wear high heels and whatever. I even remember people budgeting for the VP's underwear and whatever. And I said, what is all this nonsense? So the mindset, what is the role of a woman? When you become a leader, it's about gender. Biology is a very tiny part of a woman's life in terms of leadership. Because even after you've given birth, your biology helps you to make your spouse or your partner happy. That's all. So the role of women in leadership is to look at the constraints that a woman, a girl, is facing so that they cannot effectively play their gender role in society. Because gender is about roles, whereas sex is about biology. Womanhood is really biology. And for a woman like me, I would not no longer be a woman because it take me out of that league. So many years ago.
What do you mean?
I'm a woman to the man who makes me a woman.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes. So the responsibility of a woman in leadership is to cause research to be done in the sector where you are a leader.
Okay.
Where are these women? Who are they? In other words, how old are they? What is their level of education? What do they do? Are they in their reproductive cycle? What is their social status? Are they married? Are they holding any positions of responsibility in their home? That's when you find the single mothers. That's where you find women with men who are irresponsible. That's where you find women with men who are not able, for one reason or another, to carry on their responsibility. That's when you can help them.
So that you end up with policies that accommodate them, favor them, enable them to get better, empowered.
To do better.
The women that came from the bush opened your eyes. You joined the wagon and you have bred other many more women over the time who we see in leadership. If we continue to see the woman at the grassroots being hit hard by poverty, diseases, you'll see maternal death rates, early pregnancies among the young girls, when again you have now so many women in key positions, not only in government, but as executive directors, in the banks and everywhere. What is not being done by these women?
After identifying the problem,
yes,
you should ask, why is it a problem? I think that's where the problem is. We are not asking the right problems, the right questions to address the problems.
Break that down, ma'am.
You've enumerated the issues. Yes. Poverty, which is not specific to women alone. Because where there is a poor woman, there is a poor man. So that's a global issue.
But in their position, don't they get the effect hitting them hard?
Yes. So to solve that problem, so that women are not hit harder, you solve the poverty problem.
Generally.
Generally. Because if you go to a home where resources are not that scarce, you will not find a child who doesn't go to school. You'll hardly find a malnourished child because they can buy fish. When they come and you tell them, omwana mukene yagula ngege oba fillet omwana n'amuwa n'agula amata. So even if you educate this woman, n'omutwala in UPE, but poverty, household income is still a problem, you are not going to solve any problem. And that one we saw long ago when I was still practicing medicine. When we started the Uganda Women Medical Doctors Association, and we used to sit on Bubangali to go and teach women in Busesa about child nutrition, whatever.
You would sit on pickups?
Not even pickups of today. Those ones where they have wooden benches. Yes. And we would go on our own money. Nobody was even financing us because we saw the problem. But we couldn't solve the problem of poverty. Now, every problem you talk about, if poverty remains, you are not going to solve it. Early pregnancies. How many rich families do you find girls getting pregnant and they are a problem for the health sector? How many?
It's relative.
Well, that is what statistics is all about, because government uses evidence to put in place policy.
True.
So to me, the basic problem to be solved is to solve the problem of poverty. Poverty. How do you do that? You can make people aware. These days we have the mindset change. For me, I have different models of the way I think about it, because I've been involved in it for a very long time.
Can you share a little?
I would share. So, these women, if you bring awareness to them and concurrently talk about poverty eradication, then they would use that awareness and the support you are giving them through the poverty eradication programs to address issues of early childhood marriage. Because these girls, their mothers encourage them because they need money. They get attracted because they want nice things. But if a parent can actually do that, then of course a few will fall through the sieve, but it will not be as much as possible. Take for example during COVID, when poverty was universal among many people across the country. That's when we got the too much pregnancies, redundancy, and in my home area, because the industry was going on, the boys who were cutting sugarcane were getting money. So ngamuwa siringi 2,000 bagende baguleyo half kilo ya kawungeeka. So the girls became the sources of income. So I think sometimes we don't ask the right questions to be able to address the problems we have. If you do that, you get lost. And our problem, even when we get lost, we continue, because as we get lost, people benefit when you get lost.
How?
They benefit. Because how can you do the same thing the same way and you expect different results?
How are we going to fight poverty in Uganda? What would be the practical way you would suggest to fight poverty for the good of the woman down in Gulu, down in Iganga, down in Kisoro, and in Lyandonde?
The mistake we are making is thinking that everybody can be an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And we even have courses on entrepreneurship. And we get workshops spending millions of shillings getting everybody to attend that they are entrepreneurs. Where has that ever happened? Where everybody is an entrepreneur? Because first you look, who has actually made every household an enterprising household? That is where creation of jobs becomes important. And the question is, who will create the jobs in the rural areas? That is where we should start from. You get Michael Jordan here.
Yes.
He gets a salary every month. Already he's in the cash economy. He has where his father lives. He's educated. He's exposed. He's already growing his maize. Now he needs to put a solar dryer. He needs to actually crush that maize on cob. Start with Lukoma. Then he will employ these other people. That's how you are going to generate jobs.
Not to think that everybody should create a job.
It's not possible. Ne mubana bozala. Oba okiraba. So why do you think that a whole village can be enterprising? How do you think that every household wants to grow coffee? Or every household wants to grow cotton in a cotton area? Many people are in the villages because they have no other choice. So when I was Minister of Agriculture, yes, under the plan for modernizing agriculture, which I must clearly say has been totally misinterpreted and mismanaged and managed piecemeal, you had to do at least in one area the same thing so that you see it more. We recommended, let those people already doing something as entrepreneurs be supported. Naye nugu.
What do you mean by nugu?
Abantu ebakulaba nga olina tebajja kuyamba. Baga nti already olina kati bajja ga Lukoma yabba government. And yet the people in our society for a long time have been the people who have ever worked in government because they have access to knowledge of policy. Knowledge, they can know where to get the data from and the technical expertise within the government structures. So at the end of the day, even under PDM, we are making the same mistake. We want the poorest of the poor. Which poorest of the poor can actually do something? You are poor? To me, poverty means, then they say, mindset change. Already in the myaka ana, I will just break mindset change. Niye bwemba manyo okulima, I will go nime wa Lukoma. Musimire, ansasule. And from that money, I will be able to save, however little, for some other program. Lukoma ajja kubeera bulungi, asobole okusupportinga essomero lyaffe ery'Ebuntaba gyembeera. Ajja kusobola okuga nti sub-county yaffe terina ssomero lya gavumenti lya secondary. Ajja gamba nti bannange health center yange 3 ekyabakadde laboratory maama tajja namu kumuggyako musaayi ng'ali lubuto. The few, if you can get even 4 or 5 Lukomas in a parish,
who can employ others?
Who can employ others? Otherwise, people, era kakati employability, then you are going to produce so many masons. They can go out, but how many can go out? Then you produce so many hairdressers.
You are exonerating leaders from this because that is now policy. Where are their ideas? What is their input in this? Because
it told you that to me, the PDM is something, because the parish planning, right from the beginning, when I was the RC1, it was at RC2,
yes,
where we sat in a Bugolobi Parish Committee, where we planned for St. Kizito Secondary School. Then we said, who can? Then the church came in. And that land was made available through the planning. Because many children from the flats were crossing to go to Kiswa. And the population was big. So let's have a private school and a government school supported. RC2 and all RC2, all of us went there. So planning at RC2 for those of us who are in the RC system
would be
from the beginning. That's what we've been wanting. The roles for each of these. So this PDM is where we should situate, which is what it is meant to be. But every ministry has been told there is no new money, which to me I think is correct. You don't need money.
Why?
Do you need money to go and implement things at the village level?
Definitely, you need
Do research. I did research as a member of parliament, if I may say, for Kampala here, among my market women in Kampala. I gave them a form. What do you do? And I brought them to City Hall for a workshop. And we sat with them for 1 week. Then we gave them a form again and said, what do you need in your business in the market? In the beginning, 70% had said they needed money to improve their businesses. After the training, only 25% said they needed money.
What did the rest want?
They wanted to be taught simple arithmetical skills.
Because they realized they had the money.
They wanted to be taught how can they link up with the people who grow tomatoes in the village. How do they put their stall to be attractive? How do I manage my home and the children so that they don't come to the market? In fact, when we planned for that new market, that's why we put a place for nursing children and a daycare center. Because
so
of that.
Somebody doesn't stay at home.
Yes, so they can go from here and go and breastfeed their children. So we still, you know, when we sit up here.
What does that show you? You talked about mindset change. But if somebody realizes later, after you talking to them, that actually what I need is not just money, but how to handle the little I earn and multiply it. Yes. Would you still rule out mindset change, especially among our women today?
Whose mindset change? I got the minds of people who are already involved in that trade. They are the ones I talk to. I didn't get people on the street and go to change their minds because they had no minds. They are just hanging around.
You have women all over the country who are crying due to different problems.
And they are doing something. So
some of whom are not doing actually anything. But you have a responsibility of touching all of them.
Start with those who are doing something. Don't go to those who are doing nothing. I want to tell you, you know, this mentality where they say, leaving nobody behind. How you do it is the issue. Why you should do it? Because of equity and human rights. But how you do it for impact is where we are having problems. Okay. The idea addressing them is the issue. Because I don't have to take the road through Gayaza. Huh? Then I meet Kukalerwe, traffic. Then I meet, because the road is like this, I can still go through Ntinda and reach Dundu. What path are we taking? Which is the faster path? This is where I told you, Enugu. And we have seen it.
Who do you think is failing us, especially in as far as empowering women? Because I agree with you when you say that all the problems our mothers are facing have a connection, a big connection with poverty. And we have to fight poverty, taking the right measures. I agree with you totally. Who do you think is failing us? Personally, I would look at you leaders, women leaders that, actually, let me sound arrogant a little, that we have given the opportunity and you have not done what you said to ensure policies that will touch your fellow women.
We have at least my generation. We are responsible for the numbers.
Why are we still seeing this problem?
Every time you have to come up with, you cannot put, if you have a plate of matoke and meat, and like Ugandans do, you cannot put everything in your mouth at the same time. So we had to prioritize. Our priority was girl child education. And we did it. That's why you see so many women in technical jobs. Our priority was to make sure we had more women in executive positions. That's what you are quoting. Vice President, Executive Vice President, Speaker, Prime Minister, Minister of Finance we've had, Minister of Energy. In everywhere we have them.
Yes.
The thing is, are they doing the analysis specific to women now? Because we wanted to get there. Go to the technical departments, even in parastatals.
Yes.
We've held URA for many years. What are the taxation issues that don't allow women to enter into the tax bracket? Why are they keeping in the informal sector?
So you sound to agree with me, who is driving the blame on women leaders not having played the role.
Every time, every season has its own issues. So every time you get appointed, you have to look at what was done before. Call those who were there, something which doesn't happen in this government anymore. Call the Njubas. Call the Mukwayas. Even the Wandira Kazibwe are still here. Because I'm now not dealing with the policy issues specific to women except health. And here I have done my job. But for the general, call us. Call Ompanga, she's still there. Call Namirembe Butamazire. I have not seen of any forum since we left government where we have been called to give our views.
You are not consulted.
Not at all. We don't. If you don't see where you are coming from, you will not know where you are going. So you keep reinventing the wheel.
Maybe because of the changing times, your ideas may be
Which changing times?
old-fashioned.
What is new now is just technology. What is new about a woman who...
Are we still handling poverty or the problems that we face today? Would your measures of then be suitable for the problems we face today?
Certainly. What would be different now is the speed of implementation. Otherwise, hunger is still hunger. Lack of a roof over your head is still a problem. But what is different now is I can pick my phone and I just Google. I enter the website of the Ministry of Environment. I enter the website of whatever. As a woman leader, I should be having an Android phone. Its information comes to you very quickly. Communication is like this. When we were in government, there was one radio station, which was very good. Now there are too many. So innovate. How do I reach these women? How do I work with other women? Because I tell you, the reserve of women leaders, not on the front line, is more than enough for us to tackle all these problems that are on the ground. If our colleagues in government can make use of that massive resource in the technical areas, wherever, internationally, you just hear them on Zoom meetings or they are in a hotel or somewhere. They don't ask. Even those...
Even if it's not you, there are millions of retired nurses.
Too many. If we change our mindsets as leaders,
yes,
and we can be reached as leaders, we are not just going to talk to everybody on radio. We used to sit as women leaders every month, MPs in a workshop every month, and say, what are the issues in industry? What are the issues in health? We get experts to talk to us. What are the issues here?
All that is normal.
You tell me.
Where does that leave the ordinary woman deep in the village? Because she votes for you with all the confidence, because you know what she goes through, because you're just like her. And you get to disappoint her technically, as you have explained. Where does that now leave her? Who does she remain to run to?
I have to also exonerate my sisters, because right now It's not only, the women don't vote the women only, they vote the men as well.
Yes.
So what are the men doing for the women in the constituency?
They vote for some women who are purposefully voted for.
Precisely.
To handle.
At policy. So the policies are generally good.
And actually, even in some positions,
implementation,
some women win positions that would be taken by men.
Implementation in our constitution is at district level. So where you fault them is going to find out what's happening at implementation. There they are at fault. Because these days there is a lot of money.
At the district level?
In people's pockets. How much do they earn in that parliament?
30 million minimum per person.
And the dollar is at what? Put it at 4.
No.
Put it at 4. In our time, I was earning 80,000 shillings.
As an MP?
As an MP.
80,000?
And minister.
80,000?
As a vice president, I was earning 140,000. And the dollar was what? 450. Yes. And I had 30 a platoon of baserikale okuliisa every month to hold meetings, to meet people, to feed those baserikale. I was getting, not me directly, but my technical people supporting me, 500,000.
Your salary as vice president was 100,000.
140,000. The dollar was
450.
400. And apart from the 500,000, I got to support my residents and to support visitors, and to also, and my residents included the soldiers who were my guard, 30 of them.
Why are you saying that, Your Excellency?
You tell me, how much are these offices facilitated with? How much does an MP earn?
Basing on the dollar rate, maybe. That's why it goes up.
Katikolamu omutwe. Ogambye 30 million. 30 million.
Yes.
Divided by
520 something.
4,000 katugambe. These are the dollars now.
Yeah.
4 into 30 is what? 4 times 7 is 28.
Yes.
So it's about $7,000 per month. Now, mine as minister, MP,
yes,
was 80,000 shillings. The dollar was, let's say, 500.
Yes.
So this was how much? 5 into 80. 5 into 8 is 1. 30, that is 6. It is $1,600 compared to $7,000. And I'll tell you, a kilo of meat then costs the same in dollar terms as now. So there has been inflation in Uganda, except when we are changing the money is when there was a problem. So for the same dollar at the time, you can still get the same goods for the same dollar now. But now they are getting almost 4 times more than what we were getting.
One would say if they are playing the role you said, influencing policies that trickle down to touch the life of the woman, we would bear these figures of the amount of money. But we looked at policy and poverty, one would say we don't feel their input.
I think, again, we go back to the issue.
Yes.
Of knowing the problem, but asking the wrong question. Because when you ask the right question, you will come to the right solution. I'm not saying they are doing nothing, but they are not doing, they are either doing things which will not solve the problem or even make it worse. like I said, under PDM, you are going for the poorest of the poor. So even if you put all this money in the poorest of the poor, you are not going to get the results you would wish to expect in being middle income by 2030.
How would we come out of this to touch the lives of the women? Because the basic things they want, good health system at all levels, she can find a panadol in the hospital, she can deliver at her village, things like that. How do we get out of this? You are now talking to your fellow leaders, your daughters and granddaughters in parliament and everywhere, all technical positions. What would be your suggestion?
Reorganize. Reorganize as yourselves, my daughters, my sisters, because you have the resources you need. And in reorganizing, you are going to tap into all the resources that is available in our country. And to our country, from the diaspora, from friends, so that we can catalyze this process of getting women out of poverty. Because when you get a woman out of poverty, you get a man out of poverty. You get families out of poverty. Reorganize.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. How about the ordinary woman in the village? What would be your message to you, from you to her?
You know, those women, they have no problem. They have no problem. And that is where we do them a lot of injustice, because we take to them solutions which will not work, and they embrace them all the time. And so the problem is not with the girls and women in the village. It is with us. The leaders. We are letting them down. Let's reorganize.
What should they do? Should they have a keen eye while voting for you?
Certainly. Those days to vote for somebody, we would sit as women leaders, because we had, yes, youth councils, many women, because those days we used to come from the grassroots.
How would you compare your generation of women leaders and the breed that we have today?
We were more harmonized around issues, because we identified the issues. We worked with the technical people to identify the issues, and together we moved as one to tackle those issues.
They should reorganize.
Reorganize.
Consult you, the seniors.
Well, if they want.
Currently, Uganda is grappling with so many problems, but corruption is at the epitome. First of all, do you agree that corruption is among those problems that we have at the epitome?
I agree. Corruption, fraud, and theft. 3 of them.
Currently, we have a saga, I'll go direct to it, where women leaders outnumber the men leaders in this saga. There is a saga of iron sheets that went missing in the office of the Prime Minister, and a list came out. First of all, we thought it was social media talk, but all these leaders actually came out and admitted that they took these iron sheets. What does this mean or have to say about the leaders, especially women leaders, who are our focus in this discussion?
Women leaders have a role of ensuring that the ethics of a society are preserved, because women are the custodians of culture. And that role you should take with it to parliament or to any leadership position. So with the numbers that we have now in leadership at every level, we should be seeing a reduction in corruption and fraud, because we are also in big numbers in the police and also the judiciary.
As women? As
women. In fact, almost 45% of all judges are women or magistrates. So this is a very, very serious thing. And there is a saying in Uganda that ekyennyanja bwe kivunda kitandikira wa? Ku mutwe. So this saga you are talking about is opportunity for our president to clearly demonstrate that he should have nothing to do with this kind of behavior.
I want you to, you were vice president, I want you to sit in the president's position. Imaginary. How would he demonstrate?
Well, as you may know, when I was vice president, I fired a minister for acting unethically. He beat up a policeman in a bar. That's unethical. First of all, being in a bar at 1 a.m. in the night should be unheard of for a leader at that level.
Yes.
Secondly, when I was wrongfully accused of eating that money, yes, I told the president I'm going to resign from being vice president and Minister of Agriculture. The president said, only Minister of Agriculture, so I stepped down. And I ceased to be Minister of Agriculture to allow the IGG, whom I had asked to investigate that livestock services project. Myself, I asked the IGG. And when I was politically implicated, because I was a minister before should have been the one, but I was taking the position of a minister. I said, you cannot keep your position when you are implicated in corruption and fraud. Step down, remain a member of parliament.
Let's just have an opportunity to clear that as well. Was the investigations carried out and were you found innocent? Were you cleared?
The report does not even have my name there at all. The IGG's report. Nothing. Nothing.
So there was no story of Bidiba connected to your name?
Because I was the architect of the plan to fight corruption in the country. And I was already on people's necks, even within that livestock services project. So, right now, the government should save the NRM, sincerely. Let him save the good name of the NRM.
How?
Let him ask those ministers to step down.
There are so many.
Yes. When he starts a government, does he start with any minister when we elect him? When we elect a president, he has one minister. That is himself. Then he delegates all these roles to different individuals. Yes.
You see, you're talking about...
The name of the NRM, Mr. President, I'm telling you, this is what people are saying. If you fail to really demonstrate that you are ready to fight corruption now, then we are really going to be demoralized as members of NRM.
Do you know the figures that are involved in this saga? Whose names were mentioned?
The names are known in the press. You should know them.
The Right Honorable Kadaga, the Right Honorable current Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, Her Excellency the Vice President.
What does the law say?
Do you see the President right to fire all these?
Why not? The President can't fire the Speaker, but out of ethics, the Speaker should step down and the Deputy takes over while she's being investigated. Because now, when it comes to the Vice President should step down, and according to the law and the Constitution, the President should appoint another Vice President while this is going on. Now, with the ministers, he has the leeway. He can sack them because he can't remove them as MPs. Then it should not even be committees, no. Let the police take over. I'll tell you, I've just done my diploma in law.
Yes.
If I find that there is even 10 shillings on my account, which is mine, which is not mine, which I don't know how it got there, I should report. If I don't report, then I'm a thief. It is illegal. If people put property in your domain,
yes,
in your domicile, If they bring it to the office doesn't belong to me. But in my home, or in premises that belong to me, if I haven't seen them, that's another matter. So it's really, this is opportunity for us to start stopping the head from rotting.
You see, corruption has been here for long. Why do you think it has persisted?
Because it's condoned. Because people think it's normal. The relatives. I remember even when I was in government, and one big official was actually, we investigated them on the helicopter saga and the rotten food in the army. And people from Rukungiri embarked on the president. So the people themselves are actually condoning this kind of behavior. Because when their person does it, they go and ask the president.
Do you think the president can fight and stop corruption at this rate?
It's possible if he starts from the top. There will be a multiplier effect.
Especially if you're seeing symptoms now at that level. Very open symptoms.
No, they start from there. You are just seeing them. If your son sees you putting your hand in your wife's handbag, he will also put his hand there. If the daughter sees your mother putting her hand in your pocket to take out anything, it will be the culture.
You would have these people fired the first week we had the information.
Precisely. Even before they are fired, we are talking about women and integrity.
Yes.
They should have stepped down because all of them did not start with those positions. Let's have a culture of doing things the right way. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's allow investigations to be done by the agencies that do so. But you cannot ask Parliament to investigate their colleagues. They cannot.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Her name is Dr. Specioza Naigaga Wandera Kazibwe.
Kyabita. Ata nekyeru basalirwa.
Oh, you have a number of them.
Yes.